I'm going to be reading from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting at verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of YAHUAH HaMashiach, or the Messiah, and by our gathering together unto him. Now this verse right here is a very important verse if you will understand what's being said right here. Because in my previous sessions I've shared with you that the second coming of the Messiah and the rapture of the church are two different events. They're not one and the same. Now, when in fact, right here where Paul's writing this in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, he says, "Now I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of YAHUAH." And now, and it says, "and by our gathering together unto him." Now the gathering together unto him is when he will, as he already stated in 1 Thessalonians, that, and also as he stated in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51 and 52, where he said, "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, or we shall not all die, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye." Now he's talking, of course, he's talking to those that are part of the church. Again, the church means those that are Jew and Gentiles that have been born again by the Ruach HaKodesh. And that's who he's making reference to. And that's who he's talking about. And he said in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 that at the last trumpet that we shall all be changed. And those that have died before us shall be raised first. And then we which are alive and remain on the earth shall be caught up together with them. This is the resurrection. This is, Mashiach is the first fruits. He's already been raised from the dead. Paul wrote in the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 18, talking about the Messiah, that he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. YAHUAH is the firstborn from the dead. But he also wrote that we, over in the book of 1 Corinthians 15, that we are raised in our own order, so to speak. In other words, there is a time frame set for the rest of the resurrection to take place. There's multiple resurrections. Now, there's only two types of resurrections. There's a resurrection of the righteous, and there's a resurrection of the unrighteous. Now, the unrighteous will not be resurrected until after the millennium, or after the 1,000-year reign of YAHUAH. The scripture says this over the book of Revelation. Now, I'll get into that later, but I just want to point that out. The unrighteous, they will have a resurrection themselves. Their bodies will be raised up, and they'll stand before YAHUAH at the great white throne judgment. And but that's 1,000 years after, after the second coming, after his reign on the earth, which we as believers will be ruling and reigning with him during that 1,000-year time frame. But again, going back to this verse here, Paul says, "We beseech you by the coming of YAHUAH." Now that again is at the end of the tribulation. But then he says, "and by our gathering together unto him." The gathering together unto him takes place, at least 7 years before the second coming. In fact, this is what will trigger the day of YAHUAH, I believe, is the actual rapture, the catching up of the church, because at that time, that's the end of the times of the Gentiles, and that's the time that YAHUAH will turn his attention toward the nation of Yasharel. The final 7 years of Daniel's 70th week will be fulfilled during this time frame. It's referred to as Jacob's trouble or Jacob's trouble. It's a time frame that you don't want to be here during that time, I can assure you. And the good news is, as Paul wrote, that we're not appointed to wrath, and that we're to comfort one another with these words. The words of what? That we will not be here, or we've not been appointed to wrath, but we'll be called up to meet YAHUAH in the air before this terrible day of YAHUAH comes. May these words comfort you today and help you. Please share this with your friends. Shalom.